With the arrival of Zetzel and its seed monsters, we also have a new ban list. For the skill changes, we have Restart, which now requires you to run 7 different spells and traps in your deck, which makes me believe it'll work similar to Balance. It's a big hit to Tartar's consistency since the deck relies on Merchant into Kunamzan to make their boards. It's still possible for them to run it, but the deck will probably switch to a level augmentation skill after this nerf, or the tie that binds. Next we have Switcheroo, which is now a 1500 life point threshold instead of 1000 and a hard once per duel skill. This is a hit to invoke Neos, which would get free card advantage using Volcanic Shell. Next we have Shadow Game, and the damage is now capped at 400 life points per turn and doesn't trigger if a player is 1000 life points or lower. I'm glad this isn't a win condition skill anymore, as it would promote stally strategies that would waste a ton of time just to let the skill do the winning for the player. Nerfing this promotes proactivity and actually having a way of ending the game in your deck. Ritual Beasts were using this, but I don't think they'll struggle to find another skill to use. Show of Nightmares got a slight rework of the skill that made it so that it isn't a free +1, since you now have to shuffle a card into your deck after you randomly add a spell from your grave to your hand, but now the spells in your grave don't have to be different spells. I like this change even though it's an overall nerf, since it makes the skill significantly more balanced while also keeping it viable. I'm going to group Ojama Overflow, Bandit, and Access Denied as skills hit because of how they interacted with Star Blast. Ojama Overflow and Access Denied especially for shutting people out of the game turn 1. I think they're hitting this in tandem with Star Blast in order to give themselves some leeway in case they release more cards that manipulate your own life points in the future. Next we have the cards that were hit on the ban list, and now we can actually call it a ban list because cards were banned. First, let's start off with that Grasslet Screener. This card deserved to be banned. It generated way too much card advantage and almost instantly won the game on its resolution. There was no counterplay to this card outside of playing a 30 card deck yourself, but that's not a real solution. The way it set up your grave in decks like Shiranui and Witchcrafters, as well as to a lesser extent Blue Eyes, made this card absurdly broken and deserving of the ban hammer. Second, we have CYBER-STEIN, which was previously at limit 1. I don't believe CYBER-STEIN was broken at 1 because it was extremely inconsistent. However, I think it was banned because of how it restricted the Duel Links dev team from releasing stronger fusion monsters, because they always had to consider the fact that CYBER-STEIN could cheese them out. By banning CYBER-STEIN, they're effectively giving themselves more room to release more interesting fusion monsters in the future. Next, onto the limit 1s, we have Star Blast, which, similar to CYBER-STEIN, I don't think this card is broken by any means, having next to no success in official or unofficial tournament play. However, its mere existence restricts the Duel Links dev team from releasing more interesting skills based on lost life points, because Star Blast effectively let the player set their life points to any value on turn 1. Its restriction is not because of its current strength in my opinion, but because of what it could do in the future. Next, we have Needlebug Nest. While a strictly worst version of that Grasslet Screener, Needlebug Nest is a trap card that mills 5 cards from the top of your deck. The top KC Cup Global deck was running 3 of these in their 30 card Shiranui deck, showing how the card would set up the grave and generate a ton of free advantage just like grass. Lastly, for the limit 1s, we have Revival Gift, and I've never seen anyone use this card before in my life, but I think it's being nerfed so that its seed decks don't instantly lose because they don't have a way of getting rid of these tokens that are on their field. I don't know, I think this card is absolutely garbage. Next, onto the limit 2s, and this is a big section. Gold Sarcophagus, which was once at limit 3, is now at limit 2. Effectively another hit to Shiranui, as they can't run it and Squire anymore. Other than that, it's not the biggest change in the world right now, but as the TCG has proven time and time again, Gold Sarcophagus is a ticking time bomb, waiting for the right deck to abuse it. I could see this card going to limit 1 one day. Next, we have Charged with Light Brigade, and like Gold Sarcophagus, was at limit 3 and now it's at limit 2. With the hits to Grass, Needlebug Nest, and also Charged with Light Brigade, Duel Links is cracking down on milling effects, trying to pull back the power level and influence of the graveyard, which I think is a good step. Next, we have Ninishi, and I'm surprised Tartaris are being hit right now, especially since they just got support in the latest bots. This hit to Ninishi means the deck will probably have to cut Hatronade from their deck, which was their best way of dealing with back row, and now I think they will struggle to push through back row decks, but I still think the deck will remain a top tier strategy going into the new world. Next, we have Keeper of Dragon Magic. What a massive hit! And no, Neos Fusion is still at limit 2, in case you were wondering. Previously, for those unaware, even with Neos Fusion at limit 2, decks that were running the Neos Fusion engine essentially had 5 Neos Fusions in their decks. The 2 Neos Fusions and the 3 Keepers. Keeper could easily search Neos Fusion, while also sending cards like Elemental Hero Neos or ALEISTER to revive with its second effect, or Volcanic Shell to print free cards. Cheaper going to 2 most likely means the end of Invoked Neos and most Neos variants, as it will be extremely inconsistent to play just 2 Neos fusions and a brick, that being Elemental Hero Neos. Onto the Blackwing hit, Blackbird closed going to limit 2, one of the most absurd counter traps in the game. Being able to negate a monster effect from the hand is extremely powerful and left little room for counterplay, especially due to the nature of counter traps. Blackbird Close also summoned a 2800 body for free, which was just salt in the wound. Close going to limit 2 is essentially banning of the card, since Blackwings pretty much need to run Orochi, the best Blackwing level 1 tuner, and Raikiri, a fantastic level 7 Blackwing synchro that could pop cards for free. While the deck can still go for Necro Valley turn 1, the deck is quite a bit weaker without access to Close. And I could see Blackwing switching to the level reduction build that's been cropping up recently. To wrap up the Limit 2 list, we have another hit to Witchcrafters, Holiday going from Limit 3 to Limit 2. I think the Duel Links devs thought that putting Holiday to 3 would cut off the deck's ability to use Charge of the Light Brigade, but they just switched to running 2 Charge and 1 Holiday. Putting both Charge and Holiday at 2, as well as banning Grass, means the deck will struggle to find a way to consistently fill their grave with spells and Witchcrafter monsters to generate a bunch of card advantage from. Will Witchcrafters survive this ban list? Only time can tell. Exactly 1 year ago, this card warped the meta around it. The fusions it could access did so much, the decks it could fit in were aplenty, but yet we all knew this card had to be hit one day. ALEISTER the Invoker goes to Limit 3, not only decimating any potential Invoked Neos had to survive, but also destroying Invoked ELEMENTSABER, as the deck has both Palace and ALEISTER at Limit 3. While ALEISTER doesn't have a deck to call home right now, never sleep on the power of the Invoked engine. I'm certain it will return one day, even stronger than it was before. Let's close out this video with the cards that came off the list. Thunder Dragon's got some nice things from this list, the shifting around of Gold Sarcophagus and Charge to Limit 2, and now, Thunder Dragon Dark coming off the list. Will this make the deck viable? I think the deck was already somewhat viable before this buff. Keep an eye out on this deck, I can see it snagging some tournament tops in the near future. And finally we have ELEMENTSABER MALO. With the loss of the Invoked engine in ELEMENTSABERs, it was only natural for MALO to come off this list, as it was only put on the list because it was a fire monster to make Purgatrio with. However, I think this means that we might be getting the ELEMENTSABER boss monster in the coming future, which might bring the deck to some viability. Possibly. Maybe. That'll do it for my ban list review. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them down below, and if you enjoyed this kind of content, consider subscribing to the channel to stay up to date on these uploads. The new bots talk and structure deck reviews should be coming out in the coming days, so stay tuned for that.